The Kansas City Royals may be interested in Jarren Duran. Could a trade between the Royals and the Red Sox be worked out?
You are Locked On MLB Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome to today's crossover episode between Locked On Red Sox and Locked On Royals. I'm your host, Gabby Baljanian from Locked On Red Sox. I am here with Jack Johnson of Locked On Royals, and we are from the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate all of you who tune into our shows every day. You can continue to tune into those shows on any podcast platform. And the winter meetings are this week. We are in the midst of them right now, and there's already been some moves made by teams. And the real question is, are the Red Sox and the Royals going to work out a trade of some kind? We will have to see. We're going to be discussing all of that on today's show, which is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Welcome in, everybody, and welcome to you, Jack. We have done a show together before, but I hope you have been doing well and surviving this offseason.
Yeah, I hope the same to you, Gabby. I know it hasn't been as exciting just yet. We're really stuck to rumors and this and that. And, of course, both of our teams have been linked in not just a few rumors, but a ton of rumors. So very much looking forward to talking some Royals and Red Sox with you. And really, if there's any deal that can be worked out, because I know for one that I'm getting pretty antsy here at the winter meetings, not being able to talk about an actual move and not just having to talk about hypotheticals all the time.
Yeah, well, I know exactly how you feel because last offseason for the Red Sox was definitely underwhelming. Not really much to discuss at all, really, until they decided to make a move and trade for Garrett Crochet and then sign Alex Bregman, and then things kind of started to fall into place for them. But this absolutely is a crucial offseason for the Boston Red Sox, who have actually already been one of the more aggressive teams this offseason when it comes to trades that they have made so far, a couple pitching moves that they have made. And speaking of pitching, the Royals may have some pitching that the Red Sox might be interested in. The Royals seem to have an overflow of pitching right now. Some guys may be on the move, and the Red Sox might have some pieces that interest you. And rumor has it, Cole Ragans might be on the move this offseason. He's a guy that I would love to see in a Boston Red Sox uniform. What are your thoughts on him potentially being moved? Do you think that's a legitimate possibility?
I would go as far to say that JJ Picollo, GM of the Royals, is saying that nobody's off the table, because I feel that's the best way of doing business. If you are a GM, is, if you're just not even answering the phone or fielding offers, I mean, you're never going to know what's possible. Sometimes you open the door up of saying nobody's off the table, and then you hear a GM say, well, we want this guy. Well, if not that guy, how about this guy? So to me, it's not that the Royals are very open to trading Cole Ragans. It's more so about, well, if we do move him, I want you to know that it's going to take a haul for us to move the #1 pitcher on our staff. And I can see Boston's side, too, of going, well, Cole Ragans is a very high-value pitcher. He was a Cy Young finalist in 2024, but it's also the only year of his big league career he put it together for an entire year. So if you're Boston, you're going, we want Cole Ragans, but you can't ask for a haul because this is somebody that's only been a Cy Young finalist once, where the Royals are going, yeah, it only happened once, but we feel this guy can do it multiple times, and he's got multiple years of control. And so I do stand by that if they're going to link up on a deal, it would not be a Jarren Duran for Cole Ragans. I'm not sure the Royals would back down unless it's Jarren Duran, a Peyton Tolley, another player going in that deal. And that's just because they hold such high value in Cole Ragans. And now we're starting to learn a little bit more. They hold a lot of value in Noah Cameron as well. To me, the only guy they are very open to moving would be Chris Bubich, but you get the injury concerns and you get that he's going to be a free agent at season's end. So where at first it felt that it was a match made in heaven for the Royals and the Red Sox, I think both sides are going, well, we're not giving up the #1 guy you're asking for. I don't think Boston wants to move Jarren Duran for anything less than, a guy like Cole Ragans, to be honest with you.
Yeah, when it comes to this Reagan situation, the Red Sox, if they are continuing to look at pitching, They are not going to make a move unless they make a move for a guy that they truly feel like will be a genuine number 2, because they need somebody to slot into the rotation behind Garrett Crochet. They already have their ace. They don't need an ace because Garrett Crochet was that and more in 2025. And, they extended him. He's going to be the ace for years to come, but they don't really have a true number 2. They have some guys in this rotation that they feel could turn into a number 2, but they don't have a definitive guy to slot in behind Garrett Crochet that you can feel confident in a playoff start. So the thing with Reagans is he could fit that type of mold for the Red Sox. Like, he could be that number 2 that could slot in really nicely behind Garrett Crochet, but I don't think that the Red Sox would be willing to give up as much as they gave for Crochet, because they know that the potential of what Reagans would give them is probably not even close to the level of what Garrett Crochet is giving them. But what Reagans can give them is definitely a step up from some of the other pitchers that they have in their rotation, at least in terms of what they could rely on consistently out of him. And I do think the Red Sox are open to trading guys if it means getting a guy like that in return, because something the Red Sox have a lot of that teams are definitely intrigued by right now is young, controllable pitching. They almost have a little too much of it. So by them adding a Peyton Tolley, like you mentioned, or a Connolly early in a trade of that capacity, they don't necessarily need to keep both of those guys around, and both have really high ceilings and a lot of potential. And I could see one of those names, the Red Sox not being afraid to throw in if it meant getting a guy like Reagans back.
Yeah, and I would say that, I've used this comparison on the last couple of my episodes. It's just like, going into your boss's office and asking for a raise. You always ask for a couple thousand more, if not more than that, than what you really expect to get. So I feel with the Royals and the Red Sox, they're kind of doing that, where early on in the offseason, they know both these teams don't have to move those players. They are teams that are going to be competing, hopefully, into October, trying to make a deep run. And that's also maybe the snag on this deal, where if you're the Royals, you trade Cole Reagans, you're giving your number 1 pitcher to a team that you had to compete against in 2024 to get to October. And certainly last year, you had to find a way to get past them, and they couldn't get it done. And from the Royals' point of view, I feel that as much depth as they have pitching-wise, they know in the back of their minds there's one guy in their rotation they just can't replace, and that's Cole Reagans, because as good as Seth Lugo can be, Waka, Cameron, Bubic, Ryan Bergert, and Steven Kolick, those are all guys that could replace each other. But Cole Reagans is the only guy, in my opinion, that, in October, 40-degree weather at Fenway Park, Yankee Stadium, one of those great venues, he's the only guy they could hand the ball to and say, go win us the ball game. In the same way Boston can do it with Garrett Crochet. It's elimination game, game 7. We need our ace to go do the work. And that's why the Royals are so reluctant to trade him, because they know he's a 200 strikeout guy, a 200 inning guy, and really has the most explosive stuff in the rotation. Whereas if they're trying to entice the Red Sox with Chris Bubic, they know Noah Cameron can replace that production. Or if it's Noah Cameron, they know Bubic can replace that production. And so that's maybe where this hangup is, where if Boston was in the National League side or Boston wasn't contending, you might have a little bit more of a desire to move those guys. I thought about the Angels before with Taylor Ward and Joe Adele. You might be more inclined to make a move like that because you don't expect to be going up against them for a postseason spot. With Boston, you're directly having to go toe-to-toe with them. And if Cole Reagans went and did what he did in 2024 for the Red Sox, you're talking about by far and away the best rotation in all of baseball.
100%, yeah. And that's the biggest thing about this idea of this 1-2 punch that the Red Sox are seeking, is if you put a solid Reagans type of pitcher in there behind Garrett Crochet, there's no doubt about the fact that that gives the Red Sox a World Series contending rotation. 100%. Their, lack of pitching depth really shined through in 2025 when they faced injuries towards the end of the season, and Connolly early has to make a postseason start in an elimination game at Yankee Stadium in Game 3 of the Wild Card Series. Good luck, kid. Go do it. Because Lucas Giolito was hurt and he couldn't pitch in that game, and now they're focusing on making sure that they have that type of depth available, and that's the biggest thing to me about Bubic that may hold the Red Sox back a little bit is because of the injury history with him. And coming up, I do want to discuss whether Bubic is a possibility. Jarren Duran, a name being tossed around a lot. How serious is the Royals' interest in him? Sports betting is obviously a big thing these days. And with NFL Sundays being the best day to make bets, check out FanDuel. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're also reacting to it in real time because you can place bets as the action unfolds, and it makes you feel like you're living the experience in a different way and also making money while doing it. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. We are here on this crossover episode of Locked On Red Sox and Locked On Royals. I'm Gabby Maljanian. This is Jack Johnson with me. Just a reminder that you can tune into both of these shows Monday through Friday on any podcast platform. We are here talking all things related to our favorite teams. And speaking of our favorite teams, we want them to make moves this offseason. That's just what we want. It gives us fun content to discuss on our show, and it makes our teams feel like they're better. And this is an offseason in which it really feels like the Red Sox are in a place where they have to go for it. Made the playoffs in 2025 with a very young team, had some veterans to help that young team, but now it feels like they need to truly make some big moves to put them in the same tier as a team like the Toronto Blue Jays, who are in their division, and by the way, just went to the World Series and are continuing to get better. So what do the Red Sox need to do? Big power bats and pitching. And it doesn't really feel like their rotation is still complete, despite the fact that they have made a couple trades already. And they are eyeing some Royals pitchers. You mentioned Bubic. Now, he's an intriguing option to me because he's a guy who I feel like has upside when healthy. The key there is health. And Craig Breslow, the GM of the Red Sox, has been hesitant when it comes to trading for pitchers who are not under team control. And that's another thing I think when it comes to a trade like this that may hold the Red Sox back a little bit is they don't necessarily want to go all in for a guy that they might lose after a year. It would have to be a Garrett Crochet situation in which they would be guaranteeing an extension in order to make that type of trade. And that's what I do worry about with him a little bit. But I do feel like he's a guy that if they can maximize his potential, he could no doubt be a boost to the Red Sox rotation.
Yeah, I mean, the upside has always been there for Chris Bubic. Yeah. He has elite spin on all of his pitches. He has excellent command. I think his pitchability is up there with some of the best in all of baseball. And, you know, the injuries is just what holds everything back. And then to put a cherry on top of that, he's going to be a free agent. And I really did feel that last year going into the season I thought there was a chance the Royals could extend him because they were so high on his ability to become a great starter again. He was a starter back in 2021 and 2022, never really figured it out. Then, you know, he caught some fire in 2023, but then had Tommy John in April. So that season was cut short rather quickly, helps the Royals in a postseason push out of the bullpen. And there was no second guessing from JJ Picollo and everybody in the front office. Like I talked to Chris in spring training going into 2025, and he's like, they told me right at season's end that I was going to be in the rotation, that I was going to be working to build up to start. And he was a Cy Young level type of pitcher all the way up until he got the rotator cuff strain. And so then you have this other setback, another season that's cut short. Whereas if he finished that year completely, he would have been the number one pitcher for the Royals in a landslide. I mean, Cole Reagans was banged up, didn't pitch that effectively. Lugo and Waka took steps back. Cameron was great, but he wasn't as good as Chris Bubic. So you would have had this great trade chip in the offseason. But again, you bring up, you know, Craig Breslow. Is it going to be well, let's take a chance on him if he's healthy? Because if he's healthy, he's great. But what's the other side to that coin, Gabby? It's that he is hurt. He doesn't pitch more than, 10 starts for you. And this is a Red Sox team that wants to get to the postseason. And that's what I really think, comes down to it with a trade like it. The Royals have to understand that Chris Bubic isn't going to get the return they think they're going to get. Eventually that price is going to go down, and they know they need a bat. If Jarren Duran was maybe under a more expensive contract and he was going to be a free agent at season's end, that's something you could work out because now you got a 1-for-1. Both guys are going to be free agents. Let's see if, both sides can benefit from a deal like that. But the fact that Jarren Duran has those years of control and Chris Bubic has the injury concerns, I have every reason to believe that Boston's the one going, we don't want to do that deal. We don't want to settle for Bubic. If it's not Reagan's, we could go with someone like Noah Cameron because of the age and the years control that he has.
Yeah, I could totally see that call going that way. The Red Sox make the call and say, hey, what's good with Cole Reagans? And then the Royals are like, no, we don't want to move him, but can we interest you in Bubic? And the Red Sox are like, not really, unless you're okay with us not giving you a guy like Jarren Duran. And the interest level, I know, between the Royals and Jarren Duran, I mean, there's definitely interest there on the Royals' end. I know that they have previously expressed interest in Jarren Duran, and that is something that I definitely wanted to ask you about is Jarren Duran somebody that would be intriguing to you? Because the reality at the end of the day is the Red Sox have an overflow of outfielders right now, and there's going to be somebody that's going to be the odd man out, and that odd man out seems right now like it's Duran. I've talked extensively about their other outfielders and what they provide. This is a good problem to have, obviously, if you're the Red Sox. Jarren Duran is a very diverse player. He's multi-talented. He can provide his skill set in a lot of different areas of the game, which I think is something that could be really intriguing to a team like the Royals. So is Duran somebody that you truly believe the Royals might be at least trying to, make a call to the Red Sox about and kind of see what that might look like in a trade?
Yeah, and they've had interest in him going back to last year's deadline. I mean, he has been on the Royals' radar for a number of months, and we've seen them do that before where, they latch onto a certain player and it doesn't work out at the deadline, then they revisit it in the offseason. I mean, Taylor Ward was somebody they were linked to for 2 years. I mean, it was every deadline, every offseason. They asked about him. The Angels' asking price was just too high for them to meet. And that's where, with a guy like Jarren Duran, I feel they really do want a player like him, a player of that caliber, because you got to go back only 2 years for a guy that had an 8+ WAR season. I mean, considering the lack of outfield production the Royals have had, that would be a home run type of deal for Jarren Duran. But as JJ Bacole has always said, to get a good player, it takes giving up a good player. You're not, it's not like MLB The Show or fantasy trades where you can take advantage. I mean, these are smart people in front offices across baseball. And so to get Jarren Duran, Boston has every right to go, look what this guy can be. We do have a crowded outfield, but we're not going to tell you that we have to move him or he's going to be our fourth outfielder. The injuries happen, and that's something you have to evaluate throughout the offseason. But we know Boston certainly wants to play Roman Anthony a lot. They want to play Cedar Rafael a lot, and they've got arguably the best defensive right fielder in the sport in Wilyer Abreu. You got Masataka Yoshida, who I'm sure they'd like to move, but the Royals want to shoot higher than that. So Duran is like the guy in the wheelhouse. He's the guy they'd want to acquire. But if it means giving up Cole Reagans, I don't see the Royals really ever meeting that asking price. And I thought for a long time that Noah Cameron would be somebody for Jarren Duran. They could link up on a deal, but it wasn't until this week that I found out they really don't want to move Noah Cameron either because of the year he was coming off of and the 5 to 6 years of control. Because we know in baseball and in trades, that matters a lot to GMs out there. If you're moving somebody that has 5 to 6 years of control, you better be 100% sure the guy you're bringing in is the missing piece. And is Jarren Duran that for the Royals? Well, the only way we'd find out is if they actually do that deal, because I don't believe it would be anything less than, a Cole Reagans or a Noah Cameron that Boston would want.
Yeah, and that's understandable because, I mean, they don't want to undervalue the type of player that Jarren Duran is. And by the Red Sox trading him, it's not because they don't feel like he's a valuable player. It's more because they just, unfortunately, the position that he plays, they just have an odd man out in that scenario. And if the Red Sox go into this with the Royals, they have to really convince them that, Jarren Duran is worth it. And obviously the Royals know that. But my worry is that there may not be a situation in which these two teams are able to come to an agreement unless they throw Reagans out there and then they ask for a lot more from the Red Sox. And the problem is, again, like you mentioned, the Red Sox might not feel like Ragans is that type of player right now to where they can pull the trigger on saying, yeah, we'll give you, this boatload of players for him because, there's risks with him and we don't know exactly what type of pitcher he would be for us. And the Red Sox love those types of players. Like they trade all the time for pitchers who are like experimental guys who like have the potential to be something. And then they're willing to take that risk. So that's why I do feel like some of these Royals pitchers that we mentioned are right up the Red Sox alley because they're the type of like organization who are like, if we get this guy in our system, then we can make him better and he can fit. They don't always get like the definitive, like this guy definitely would be our number 2. And that's why I would feel like if they want to trade for a guy like Ragans, they see how they could make him their number 2, no doubt about it. But knowing the risks involved, I don't know that they would be okay with going past much more than maybe Duran and one of their young pitchers, like a Peyton Tolley or a Connolly Early, who I do think, by the way, those 2 guys are more tradable than people are making it out to be. I do think the Red Sox are open to trading one of those 2. And I think they will end up trading one of those 2. It's just a matter of which one and what type of trade it is. I don't have any doubt in the world that these 2 teams are discussing trades. I mean, it just makes too much sense that if the Royals have been interested in Jarren Duran, that there's at least a conversation that's happening. Whether it actually gets executed is a different story. And I think that's the part that people sometimes miss and don't realize is like these trades don't just happen. Like both sides need to be in agreement and the players involved, the other team needs to like those players that you're offering. So while I do think they could work out a deal, the Red Sox might have to be prepared for the Royals to ask for a little bit more than what the Red Sox are willing to give up. And that's where I could see the trade stalling, or I could see Craig Breslow being like, you know what? We want this guy here, so why not? And then that could look like an overpay on the Red Sox end. So it's a hard balance of figuring out, how serious these teams are about making a trade happen. And it also poses another question of how serious are the Royals about competing in 2026? Because if they're going to give up Ragans, that's basically saying, we don't really see us being a competitive team really that much in 2026 because we're giving up our best pitcher. So you have to also figure out kind of where the Royals are at in that regard.
Absolutely. And, with Cole Ragans, as we've said before, he's the guy they can't replace in the rotation. And they're willing to roll the dice. If 2024 is as good as it got for Cole Ragans, then so be it. That's kind of the dice rolls that you have in baseball, where sometimes that is the best a guy can be. To me, though, the only thing standing in the way of Cole Ragans from being a top 10 pitcher, if not a top 5 pitcher in the sport next year, is injuries. And so that's where you weigh the risk and reward of a deal like this with Jarren Duran. For the Royals, I think the question would be, at his best, what is he? Is he a top 10 player in the sport? Well, you got to go back 2 years to see that he was a top 10 player in this sport. And so there's always risk on both sides. And I feel for Boston, the fallback they would have is if Cole Ragans is dealt and he's traded for and then he's hurt, you still can fall back on Garrett Crochet being the number 1, where if the Royals, if Jarren Duran doesn't work out and they acquired him, they still then have one of the worst outfields in all of baseball. And that might just be something they can't overcome. And especially if you dealt someone like Cole Ragans, now your rotation is significantly worse.
Yeah. So it almost feels like the Red Sox have kind of more that they can afford to lose in this than the Royals do. It almost feels like if the Red Sox part ways with Duran, it's because they have an overflow of outfielders and it wouldn't really set them back because of where they're at in the outfield. Whereas if the Royals move one of their best pitchers, that's like a noticeable, okay, we have a huge gap in the rotation now. And the Red Sox just added a good pitcher when they already have their ace in Garrett Crochet. So it almost feels like the Red Sox do kind of have the upper hand in this type of trade because they know that there's more flexibility on their end. And I do think that they could try to use that to their advantage when it comes to the type of players that they try to throw out there. But if they really want Ragans, I do have no doubt in the world that they would be willing to move Duran and likely at least one of their young controllable pitchers in the process. It's just a matter of do the Royals want that? And do they want to take that risk? Like you said, these trades always come with risk, and coming up, the Royals are in the draft lottery. So the question is really, where are they going into 2026, and what could their team actually look like when it comes to spring training? Gametime is the best ticketing vendor if you're looking for tickets to any live sporting events like the World Cup coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, or a concert or a comedy show, you name it. Gametime, no doubt, is the best. I personally like it because you can see the view from your seat, so you know that it's not obstructed, and it's a lot cheaper than other ticketing vendors. All you have to do is pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes, so there's no confusion, and it's a really smooth, seamless way of getting tickets for any live event. I use it all the time. Just take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Gametime. Back to this crossover episode of Locked On Royals and Locked On Red Sox. Now, we've kind of come to this conclusion that a trade between these two teams may not be as easy as some people may think it is. Some people feel like these two teams are destined to make a trade this offseason. Of course, I ironically am also wearing blue as we're recording this, and I didn't even think about that. But the Royals are in an interesting place. I mean, they have a lottery pick in the draft. They're a team that, didn't have as good of a season in 2025 as they had in 2024. 2024 felt like they had a lot of potential. The Red Sox, on the other hand, know that they are trying to take things one step further from where they were at in 2025. So it feels like these teams might be in a little bit of a different space. So what I want to ask you is, where do you think the Royals are truly at going into 2026? Do you think they are a team that's in position to try to contend in 2026? Or do you think they're more in a place to where it would be beneficial for them to try to trade some of these assets and focus more on the future at this point?
I do expect them to contend based on what they've said this offseason, that they really do feel last year was not necessarily a step back because over the course of this franchise's history, there's not been many times you could look at a 500 year and go, well, that was an absolute disappointment. I mean, they still were competitive all the way up into September, but they went into 2025 having the expectation to win the Central and get back to the postseason and make a deeper run than the ALDS. Even though for a lot of people outside of Kansas City might have said that they caught lightning in a bottle in 2024. They were very healthy. They had a weaker division. They did feel that they were good enough to compete that year. And so now this offseason is more so about ensuring that the steps back they took in 2025 aren't going to be as severe in 2026. Everybody knows in baseball that guys are going to regress. You're not going to have everybody take a step forward. You're not going to be as healthy as you've always been. There's going to be things and points where you deal with that adversity, and it comes down to your depth and how good of a team you really are to overcome all of that. But this feels like an offseason. They are going to try to land that middle of the order bat. They are going to try to shore up the little holes they have in the bullpen, and they expect really big steps forward from Jack Caglione and Carter Jensen to really even out that lineup. And if that all happens, I know it's a big if, but they want to be a team that can win anywhere from 88 to 92 games next year, which should be good enough to grab a postseason spot for sure. But depending on what Detroit does and what Cleveland does, it might be good enough to win you the American League Central. It is a winnable division. We know at the AL East, it's a gauntlet when you got the Red Sox and the Blue Jays and the Yankees
about it.
and the Rays and the Orioles. In the AL Central, you've got two teams that are not going to be very good in the White Sox and the Twins. Therefore, it's you and two other teams, and how you fare against them very well could dictate your spot in October.
Yeah, 100%. And you do mention the word if. It's always an if. You really never know fully what's going to happen. Injuries are always a factor. players maybe underperforming or overperforming. It's hard to really know for sure, but it sounds like based on everything you're saying, I could see the Royals' hesitation to want to give up some of these pitchers, because if they are giving up a couple of their top pitchers, that is basically saying, okay, yeah, we don't really see ourselves competing in 2026, because then what's the alternative? You know what I mean? So like, I do feel like the way they go about this offseason, and if they do decide to move one or two of these guys, that's going to dictate what's going to happen for them moving forward. And with the Red Sox, if they make a trade for a guy like Reagans, I have no doubt that that rotation would truly be a rotation that can compete. They have to, try to compete with the Yankees and the Blue Jays, who, like you mentioned, are really difficult and hard teams to compete with. So we'll have to see what happens with both of these teams. Will they make a trade? Maybe, maybe not. Hard to say. But Jack, this has been awesome as always. It's always nice to talk to people when you see your teams being, floated around in trade rumors. Potentially, I'm sure Jarren Duran's name is being brought up, maybe even as we speak. We'll have to see if a trade gets worked out. But just a reminder that you can tune into both of these shows Monday through Friday on any podcast platform. Make sure also, if you are an everyday listener, to check out our Everydayer Club, where you get perks like ad-free episodes, and you can get a Discord channel where you can interact with us and other fans of your team. So make sure that you check out all the perks that could come with that. Just click on the link in the YouTube description and it'll take you right to that. Also check out Locked On MLB with Sully for all things off season. Take care, everybody. I always end every show with Go Red Sox. And so I'm going to keep it that way and say, Go Red Sox.